Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com and the Big Four Accounting Firms YouTube channel. Before we get started, just wanted to remind everybody to support us if you have a chance or if you can. Even $1 helps. And we have a link in the description to a website called Buy Me a Coffee. It's just a way to donate to us and support us. Again, any amount is helpful so that we can keep putting out content. And there's also other ways for you to support us in the show notes to this podcast or on YouTube in the description. In today's podcast, we're going to talk about news from KPMG using smart glasses. And this article came out in Accounting Today. And it talks about how auditors at KPMG are now using smart glasses and how this issue came up where KPMG still has to count inventory, but you couldn't really do that remotely, or it's difficult to do it remotely. But it's also during COVID-19, so people didn't really want to be close to other people, but KPMG had made investments before the pandemic in smart glasses. And if you've been on social media, you've probably seen these because people have advertised these a lot about smart glasses that can count inventory, because it's not only aimed at the big four accounting firms, it's also aimed at companies that need to count inventory and manage inventory. And so this article goes on to say what they do. To perform physical inventory counts, an auditor has to travel to a client site and comb through warehouse counting every item. And that was how it used to be. And so it says that all in all, it can involve a large expenditure of money, time, and man hours. And the smart glasses enable the wearer to connect to the internet via augmented reality and add information to what the wearer is seeing in real life. And basically what this means is like the Big Four accountant or KPMG person can see this remotely. They can be viewing what the person at the client site is actually viewing in their glasses. And also the glasses use technology to count the inventory. And it says that KPMG invested in 150 units of expert eye smart glasses made by AMA. And it says that they first took it to field trials and they took the technology to 5 client teams. And what the feedback was that it provides significant value to the audit. And I think this is pretty amazing news, and it's actually a really good use of technology, because having somebody with a CPA physically count things is not really high skilled, and there can still be errors there. So this is actually pretty cool news, and we're only going to see more of this news because, like I said, I've seen this technology before on various social media sites, because it's not only KPMG that's trying to enhance their audit, it's technology firms trying to sell technology and come up with new uses for technology. And another piece of news, or a new service that I saw that the Big Four accounting firms are offering, is from Deloitte. Now, Deloitte sponsored content on Harvard Business Review, which they do a lot. And Harvard Business Review is a pretty good site for articles about business. And Deloitte sponsors a lot of content because they're a consulting firm as well as an accounting firm. And they have a new offering. As we know, the Big Four accounting firms get into social justice in every way possible as they sign on to, diversity and equity, inclusive initiatives. And we've talked about before how Deloitte is now offering consulting services related to police brutality and imprisonment, and how to change the way police do their work, change the way the prisons do their work. Basically anything that's in the news for social justice they get involved in. And another one is climate change and ESG. Like, as soon as something becomes big in the social justice world, they start offering a service. And that's what they've done with the diversity and equity and inclusion initiatives. And now in this article from HBR, they're trying to tell you all the things that you need to do, and that how every CEO or equivalent position can be affected. That's board of directors, chief executive officer, chief financial officer, chief strategy officer, chief marketing officer. They have a whole list of all these positions within corporate boardrooms that have a position or that have a role in diversity measures within companies. And I think it's kind of funny because I think most of the accounting firms, especially in the United States, don't have that much diversity in their leadership role. I know Deloitte does, Puneet Ranjan, but he's a global CEO. And so, but a lot of the accounting firms, they don't do well in the diversity area, but they're not afraid to offer services. And one of the funniest things that I saw was this Harvard Business Review article, which I'll link to, links to Deloitte's website where it gives more information about the service offering. And you can tell why Deloitte has this new service offering, because they said 91% of CEOs that they surveyed said they are investing in their talent life cycle to promote racial equity. But only 22% said they're investing in their products or services to advance that same goal. So what Deloitte's basically saying right there is that a lot of CEOs are trying to advance diversity and inclusion, but they're not spending any money. And so what Deloitte is trying to do is to say, hey, you can send us some money and we can help you out. So I think it's interesting. I don't know how much work Deloitte is going to win, because people know what they need to do, right? If you want to increase your diversity, equity, and inclusion numbers, then you need to hire the people where your goals align to, of where you need that diversity at. And I'm not sure CEOs are going to really trust an accounting firm or a consulting firm to help them with that, especially because this is a whole new area. I think companies will invest in this area once they run into an issue or get a bad press release. Then they'll say they'll hire Deloitte to look into what went wrong. But I think the Deloitte and the other accounting firms, they need to look inward, fix their inward problems, and say how they fixed it, and then they can take it outward. Because I think many companies are like the accounting firms, where the accounting firms have been saying they're going to increase diversity for forever. But the problem is they don't invest in the beginning stages in college to get people to choose accounting, because it's one thing to say you're going to hire a certain amount of a certain race or ethnicity or gender or whatever, but if the pipeline isn't there, then you can't really do that. And the accounting firms have that problem, but so do many other businesses. So I think Deloitte's getting out ahead of this, just because I think they did that survey and it shows that people aren't spending money in this area, and they hope, since it's in the news all the time, you can't really escape it on the news and social media, that people will start spending money with them. But the thing between the news, social media, and all this is CFOs and CEOs don't necessarily pay as much attention as other people. I mean, some of them do, but they also aren't going to spend their money willy-nilly all over the place on this stuff, because just like, I mean, every business wants to increase their net income, and they're not going to just invest. They're not going to just hand all their money over to Deloitte for every social justice issue, because most businesses, that's not their primary business, so they don't know to invest there, and they don't really invest money in those services until something bad happens. So that's just something interesting out there, because we talk a lot about all the new areas that the kind of firms are getting into, whether it's blockchain, social justice, government work, and it's just keeping you up to date on all this so you can be aware of how things are moving or increasing, or maybe there's an opportunity there for you to get involved in one of these areas if it interests you, because the big four accounting firms are invested in so many things. But another thing, the last thing I wanted to bring up was PwC UK tweeted out an alumni story, and I wanted to link to their alumni page in PwC UK, so people can look at people's experiences in the big four accounting firms, their stories. Specifically, the PwC was reaching out to alumni to try and get their stories. But on this website, they already have some stories that are up there. And I know a lot of people are interested in what it's like to work at the Big Four accounting firm and Big Four accounting firms. And these alumni websites, all the Big Four accounting firms have them, but they're not necessarily the best to learn what people did in the Big Four accounting firms. But maybe you can get something out of it, because a lot of times these stories are, if they're alumni, they left to go do something different. And especially if they're actually speaking to the firm that they left, in this case, PwC, it's because they went to go do something completely different and they're trying to promote it. So sometimes these stories aren't really the average story. And since they are trying to promote their own product or service on PwC's platform, they don't really say what made them leave. But these people did end up leaving, and they did end up choosing a completely different career or field. And they left on, or I mean, like, basically what I'm trying to say is the Big Four accounting firms push them to do something completely different because they didn't really see the path forward at the Big Four accounting firms. And they don't really say that in their stories. So that's one caveat that I will say about this website. But it's a good resource for people to see what's possible with your Big Four accounting firm career and the things that you can do. So I'll link to it because a lot of people don't pay attention to these alumni websites, but there is value that you can get out of them if you're wondering what you can do with the Big Four accounting firm career, or you're currently at the Big Four and you wonder like what your exit path could be. So I'll link to that in the show notes and the description on YouTube. So check that out. But that's the podcast for today. Make sure to subscribe to stay up to date. Support us through the Buy Me a Coffee link if you can. And if you can't, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Big Four Accounting Firms. Thanks for listening.